Good morning, welcome back to United TV. Sorry for the delay. We've been trying to upload pictures to go with the stories we're going to be discussing today about potentially Manchester United, some done deals with EDERSON and BALEBA. Some stories coming out there as well about Manchester United about to make an offer and the valuation of that. Also, information coming out from Brighton. I think Brighton are trying to talk it up as well, saying that BALEBA's actually had a few good games recently. So that could be a positive for them. But I think the transfer fee is not going to really change too much. I don't think Manchester United's interest has really changed too much in Belieber either. I think they've been genuinely interested all season, despite the form, despite what's happening. Manchester United are not changing their mind on that. The most recent thing we've seen that is potentially new as well is that Manchester United, along with a lot of other clubs as well, are looking at potentially making some sort of deal for Ramos here. It looks like Manchester United were linked with him probably about a year ago, 18 months ago, and we did talk about it then on Red Devil United. But I think Manchester United are definitely in the mix. Barcelona see the Paris Saint-Germain player as a long-term successor to Robert Lewandowski. So, I mean, they need to move on a few players as well, and they need to reshape their squad after probably a bit of a disappointing season in the Champions League by their recent standards. So this is one where I think for Manchester United fans, I don't think Chelsea's the best option for any football player at the moment. Newcastle United look like a bit of a shambles. This could be one where maybe Manchester United could be battling Arsenal again, so this would be a difficult one. But I can see, to be honest, I can see these sort of deals being useful for Manchester United. And if you're looking at trying to get your squad fixed as quickly as possible over the next 12 months, I think getting some midfield options is obviously the primary target. But around the kind of like key midfield rebuild, I think loan deals have got their place, and it depends on what you can do. And this would be like a loan. I think because Paris Saint-Germain spent quite big money, they would be looking. There'd possibly a loan with an option, loan with an obligation. So I don't really mind if you're looking just to go quickly to that before we talk about Edison and whether this is a done deal or not. I don't mind a loan with an option because that's gives Manchester United effective backup, a good backup option, potentially someone that's got a lot of experience as well. But it doesn't feel very risky at all. If it doesn't work out, that United don't have to spend much money or any money at all. So maybe we can see Man United actually take advantage of the loan market, something we've not done for a long time. So we see our players going out on loan, don't we? We see there's going to be I think it's been confirmed actually that Napoli are going to buy Rasmus. So it was an option, but I think that's been confirmed. But Manchester United, we're kind of like the team that loans players out, but we've not really taken advantage of the loan market. We tried to loan Gallagher in, but we don't tend to do these sort of deals. So I think it's positive if we do start moving in that way. So I'm going to go through some comments, and there's obviously quite a few things. I just heard something about Mbappe. Yeah, I don't know. I've seen people posting comments about Mbappe recently over like the last like 24 hours, and like someone posted a couple of things in a few different streams, not necessarily just my streams, but on other Man United content creators. I don't know. I've not heard anything about Mbappe. I've heard a lot of Real Madrid players are not happy, but yeah, that's not really breaking news. So I don't know. Um, Real Madrid players are being linked with moves, but maybe they were going to appoint Mourinho. Maybe things will change. So I don't know. At this point in time, I would probably I'd probably just ignore any sort of Real Madrid chat, to be honest. So let's go through a few of the conversation points as well. Maybe the starting point is going to be. It looks like Manchester United have made an offer. Like, I know this is actually came out say yesterday, but this is a story that's been posted again this morning. I got this about 30 minutes ago, and it says that the proposal is higher. It looks like how do people feel about this one? Like it looks like this might be like a genuine first deal. So I think when we first saw it, my feelings were okay. It looks like Atletico Madrid just taking a bit of time to get this deal done. But no, a few people are saying that it looks like it might be done deal for Manchester United. If this is the first deal, then how do people feel about it? Also, yeah, a bit of information on Ramos. 24 turns 25 next season. Still pretty young. That's not much difference. Not much difference to what we've got with Sesko. I mean, what with Ramos, if it's a loan with an option and it works out really well, then yeah, because not much money is going to change hands, is it? But if we're looking at like as Gregory said, loan of an option into the club would be good, wouldn't it? It's quite low risk. It means you can do a couple of those sort of deals. I think, to be honest, I hope Man United do that deal because worst case scenario is he's a backup. He's not used loads, and then it doesn't cost us much money. Best case scenario is if it works out brilliantly, you've got a decent signing there. So I like that. Hopefully, we do more of that. Yeah, I'm kind of surprised we don't try and do more of that. I mean, the last day of the season, trying to get a midfielder in on a loan is not the best option. But if you're looking at this stage of the transfer market, it might be worth doing that alongside spending quite big money on other targets. Morning, Randy. Morning, Karthik and Mark. Good to see you guys in the chat as well. So his stats pretty good for say 195 games, 109 goals and assists. They're decent numbers. Decent numbers. I guess it's always going to be difficult regarding being at Paris Saint-Germain. They've got a lot of top quality players. And to go to this one, Mark says, I wouldn't want Ederson. I'd use the money on João Gomez instead, which is kind of like about the same sort of price, isn't it? About the same sort of price. And Howard said, yeah, big up to you, Howard, as well. You already said I said it last night. You think Edison is the most one of the most similar profiles to Casemiro, so very technical. I think I think Casemiro feels like a much better option. Like, I think most people would probably look at that at the moment. So I think a better option, 100%. But Edison, we're talking about quite a cheap deal here. So Man United are offering him about 75k per week. It looks like the transfer fee might be about 40 million pounds. So we're probably talking about, I don't know, a deal that's cheaper than Edison, so sorry, than Nagate. So if we're looking at this, 26 years old, he is pretty mobile. When you're looking at some of the stories around Edison, some of the stats he's putting up defensively are actually pretty good. They're quite similar to Baleba's form a year ago. So in terms of like passing, tackling, winning the ball back, he's going to be definitely a massive upgrade on someone like Agate. And if he's coming in as like, I know, the third choice midfielder or like a third midfield option, I think it's actually quite a good deal. But I'm not going to say I think it's the deal Man United actually making first. But in terms of like where it stands, I think a lot of people are probably, if you're looking at Edison and you're comparing him to Tchouaméni or Anderson, in terms of like what's Man United's big signing going to be, then obviously it's not going to be particularly exciting. But if you consider that we might be getting a couple of other midfielders and Edison, I think he brings a lot of experience. Also, he's going to be a big upgrade on Agate, and Toby Collier had his injury issues but wasn't playing much. So I don't mind. I think it's a potentially a good option out there as well. And big up to Matty. Good to see you, Matty. Hope you're keeping well as well. So I will try and go through some of the comments as well as much as possible. Also, massive shout out to Matty. I appreciate that, Matty. Thank you so much for the super chat. Really appreciate that. Thank you, and thanks for your support over the years as well, Matty. I know a lot of people won't know that you're also a big supporter of Red Devil United as well. So massive thanks to you, Matty. So we're going to go through this and I'll try and take I'll try and take most people's opinions in if I can. I know everyone's going to have a different view, a different opinion, but I'll try and read out as many as possible because for me it's really difficult to pick like the first transfer and then have an opinion about whether if you're positive or not. Because I think a lot of people would look at Edison as why am I United signing him, I think if I'm looking at it as a fan, then he's not my top choice, but you don't necessarily get your top choice first. Like Manchester United, like I said if you remember last summer, I spent probably about 2 months saying, please sign a goalkeeper. Like, please sign a goalkeeper. And I was saying to people, we're definitely going to sign a goalkeeper. It's going to happen. And it happened pretty much like in Fergie time of the transfer window, didn't it? It happened right at the very end. But again, I think when you look at the transfer window as a whole, I think it's going to be I think it's going to be genuinely quite interesting to see where this kind of lies in. But there's no guarantee that Edison actually wants Premier League football either. So the fact Manchester United are like presumably in pole position for this deal does not mean the deal actually happens. But it's one that's worth talking about for sure. But no, the contract's quite cheap, and these feel a bit like if you're looking at some sort of like setting the scenes, yeah, I think it's going to be not the worst situation. Mbappe would be a Woodward signing. Yeah, we kind of need like it's almost like we need a combination of like crazy Woodward signings that are good, but also a sensible base that Ineos might be putting in there as well. But in terms of Edison, I might put a poll in the chat actually and get people's opinions. Now, big up to you, Gregory. I think it's very late where you are, isn't it? The transfer and salary makes him very attractive. I'd take him. So let's put a quick poll in the chat. This will be like maybe a snap poll for like 5 minutes. But Edison's going to be, a decent amount of experience. You're looking at a player that's played top quality European football for at least sort of 4 or 5 years. Key figure in Atalanta actually winning a European trophy a couple of years ago. So let's have a look at say um, how much it's going to be. So would you take Edison? And the price is going to be about 40 million, isn't it? So there's not for me. There's not really a downside. The only downside is that if you feel like Man United actually get a different player for 40 million, then you wouldn't do this deal. But if you're looking at this deal as a one-off deal, like is Edison worth 40 million? I think it's like a good price. The fact is like it's only 26, so you're looking at another player that could be, potentially for Manchester United for like 5 years. But I'm gonna say the only thing I would say is that it's a little bit of an unknown in terms of like how did he do in the Premier League? Like where does he stack up alongside Baleba, Alex Scott, like Tonali? Anderson, how would he actually do? Like how and as Matty says as well, is Edison actually good enough? I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. That so part of me says like I don't think that he's been linked to Manchester United for about 18 months. He's also been like slightly linked to Man City, but I think this is coming from his side of it. Then is he actually going to be good enough for Manchester United? I don't know. The thing is, I know that João Gomez probably would be a decent midfielder as well. And I know that I think Alex Scott's got potential. Fernandez at West Ham's got potential as well and is a good player at the moment. So I don't know. It would be like it's cheap, but it doesn't seem to be. I don't know. It feels like one of those signings that I don't want to say underwhelming because that feels a bit harsh, but it seems like one of these deals where if Manchester United did it, I would just be, yeah, I would just be not sure whether it's the best option as well. But Cody says, I feel Agate is so bad. Anyone's an upgrade, but I'd rather go for someone, say, more trusted than Edison, in your opinion. Yeah, Edison's like I think he ticks a few boxes for, a few boxes in terms of like what Man United might be looking for. He's kind of the right sort of age. It's kind of similar a little bit to maybe Cunha and Mbuemo, but without playing in the Premier League. So it's someone that's been considered like one of the better players in Italy in terms of midfielders over the last sort of 4 or 5 years. He has been like pretty consistent. Defensively, his work's good. He is actually quite good passing wise as well. That he would be. Yeah, he has been quite creative for Atlanta. He's someone that does a lot of things pretty well. So in terms of like, if you wanted to compare him with Agate, he would make Agate look pretty poor. He's going to be defensively similar to Agate, able to win the ball back. Good in duels, good in tackles, but on the ball a lot more, like, a lot better. So I think yeah, if Man United were if when we were signing Agate 2 years ago, Edison would have been a more effective signing then. But at this point in time, there feels like there's a lot of good options out there. Like Andy says, a bit more experience than younger players we're looking at. It could be that Man United are looking a little bit for a little bit of balance and say so cheap, says Jolly, you can't really go wrong. Is he better than Fred? Says Andy. Um, I wouldn't say I really know. So is he better than? Would he be better than Fred in the Premier League? I don't know. Fred played in a Manchester United team that wasn't the greatest setup, was it? So I think Edison would probably. You'd have to guess and say he's more effective than this one, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Be up to my man Fozzy TV. Good to see you, Fozzy. Always a pleasure. It's been a while since I've seen you in the chat, so it's good to see you, my friend. And yeah, Fozzy TV, we will be collaborating hopefully very soon as well. Get you on here to get your opinions, particularly as the transfer window kind of heats up a little bit as well. Does it feel like this one? If we're talking about Edison, it feels like if Manchester United bought three midfielders, Edison would be like the third one in terms of like price, in terms of like people's excitement level towards the signing. And if we do him first, it's effectively because it's the easiest deal to do. It's not because it's a top priority. It's because there's an offer on the table. You know, when you look sort of looking, it's like Manchester United have walked past the Ferrari dealership and then seen like a really good deal for essentially like a backup car for when you just want something that's going to be reliable. You won't use it as much possibly, but no, and I think at the price, it's generally tricky, isn't it? I'm the same as like Kartik. I'm kind of 50-50 on this because it seems like quite cheap, but it depends. If you can get someone that's potentially the same price but it's going to be improving year after year, then it depends what the alternative is, doesn't it? If you said to me, would I take João Gomez or would I take Ederson? I would probably say, I think João Gomez in a couple of years, you'd look back on and think, I'm glad we took João Gomez and not Ederson. But considering with Manchester United, then I don't know at this point in time. So for the price, so Yardi said I would take Ederson over Belieber. Yeah, I would say that for some reason, yeah. I mean, I would say also say I wouldn't rule out João Gomez either. Like at the moment, the last sort of 24 hours, there's been a lot of Edison news coming out there. So that's why we're talking about Edison. That this is coming out. I think it's what we're seeing. Do you remember last season where there was a bit of talk about who was it we're looking at? The player that went to Chelsea. I've kind of forgot Delap. I've kind of forgotten about Delap because Delap has effectively gone under the radar and disappeared from the football map, really going to Chelsea. But I think we looked at Delap as a very cheap deal early on, and I think Man United might be looking at early on. Is there a couple of cheap deals to do? So if we're looking at say João Gomez or Edison, these kind of are the similar sort of deals to Delap last season. There's a lowish price. There's someone that could be a good option at that price, but again, it's kind of difficult to say, isn't it? Say let's have a look. So why can't we do João Gomez? It's an easy deal. Wolves are down. They'll need funds. Everybody thinks that João Gomez is like the really cheap deal, something we can get done. Yardley Hull want to buy Collier. That's probably quite good news actually for Manchester United and for Toby Collier because I don't feel Collier is going to be someone that comes back to the club. So I would suggest that I honestly a bit of a guess what the price is going to be, but hopefully Man United can actually get a decent bit of money. If we can get like I don't know how much we've got from players in the past, but I think Garner went quite cheap. Maybe we can get a decent amount for Collier. I hope so. Anyway, this is something that United have been terrible at recently. João Gomez wants Liverpool. Okay, if Fozzie's like still in the chat, I don't know if he knows anything about that, but so João Gomez wants Liverpool, not United, says Yarley. If he wants Liverpool, I don't think Liverpool have been looking at João Gomez, have they? If they do, then yeah, but I think that some of the players they got, then yeah, I'd be surprised, but let's see. Is Edison at 40 million a better option than Hackney at 35? Says we deserve better. This is like a tricky one, isn't it? This is the tricky one. I think when you start looking at that, and you've got João Gomez, Hackney, Edison, Agume as well. I mean, for me, I'd probably be. This is one where I think if you put those four players up, you'd probably get an evenish sort of split. I think the only thing that's in favour for Edison would be a bit more experience, more European experience, and that's something. But again, I would say that physically, I think someone like Hayden Hackney would be a better option. I think João Gomez has already proved that he can be a good option in the summer as well. So no, I think 40 million, like Kate says, 40 million is value, but I think at this stage there's better options out there. And I said I'd start with Anderson or Tonali and work your way down. So Edison's not top of the list, but I think you have to look at if in terms of like Man United aren't going to be doing a deal for Anderson like this week if they ever do manage to get a deal done for Anderson. So I like your order of priority, Kate, and I think you got it probably spot on in terms of Anderson or Tonali would be up there. I'd throw too many in that list as well. But I think you've got to be realistic and say, if you're going to look at what's the first deal to be done, like Manchester United last season, the first deal we tried to do was Delap. Then the second deal we did was actually the first deal we got done was Cunha because it was a release clause. And then other deals like Sesko were more complicated because of Arsenal's interest and the Lamman situation. I think there was just a lot of goalkeepers to choose from. So I think at this point, you do the easier deals first and then you work through. Like you can't do. I don't think Man United could be looking at someone like Anderson first because of the situation in terms of where's he going to go. Forest need to actually finish their season as well because there's a lot to play for at Forest. I think then once you go past that one, too many. There's loads about the contract situation. If Man United try and do those deals first, they'll literally get nothing done. So they have to do one of these deals to start with. Cody says, I don't think Cody's got a future. He's got to sort out his injury issues. He's been a bit unlucky. I think Cody's got a future, but it's probably not a Manchester United. That the timing's like if he'd avoided injury for a couple of years, maybe. But yeah, you have to meet. Like I think Cody needs to just think about himself now. Like he needs to get regular games somewhere else. So the Championship team in the Championship is a good move. Like loads of players have gone to the Championship and we've seen like Gyökeres, we've seen Hackney that being talked about now, and we're seeing like Ghana. So 1 or 2 years in the Championship, you get back into the Premier League quite quickly and maybe get some great experience. So I don't mind like McCollier. I wouldn't mind seeing him get more opportunities a year ago, but I think from now on, like Man United are going to be spending pretty big. Welcome all boxed up. Good to see you in the chat. Hope you're having a good day. Actually, all boxed up. I believe you're a Leeds fan. So there was a story about Joe Gomez, and the links were with Leeds United apparently making an offer for Joe Gomez. So I don't know if there's truth in that or not, but that was probably about a week ago. I talked about that, about rumours that Leeds were going to put in an offer. That was the story. So I think Joe Gomez is definitely, he feels like the price he's at, there's going to be quite a few people looking at. I mean, Wolves have been relegated essentially for about 6 months, haven't they? So everybody knows that João Gomes was going to be in a relegated team. So I don't think there's been any revelation recently. I think people were looking at him. Neil says that Hackney for you would be a good option if you're looking at the cheaper option. Um, let's have a look at this one. So, are we signing players to compete with City and Arsenal and say, or are we signing players to hold our Champions League place? I think initially, if you look at Man United, that is it a surprise to people that we're potentially getting third in the league? So I think at this point in time, I think the key thing's got to make sure that the key thing for Manchester United is we can't have a season like last season happening again. So there needs to be more depth in the squad. Also, we can't have the sort of season that Newcastle had. We can't get into the Champions League and then struggle massively in trying to run two competitions. If that happens, the way that Manchester United get back to competing with teams like Liverpool and teams like Manchester City and Arsenal, like we're talking about, is you need to be in the Champions League every single year. So we're effectively, we've got back in this year, but it does take years. Like some of the problems we got with the club with financial issues and trying to spend as much as City is not possible when you avoid the Champions League for a couple of seasons, then you get back into the Champions League, then you drop out again, then you come back in. So continued participation in the Champions League is what's required for Manchester United. So to answer your question, Cake, I think United need to make sure they don't drop out of the Champions League again and build a team that's capable of finishing at least top four every single season. That's got to be the minimum this transfer window. Make sure that the floor of the club isn't as low as it's been. So if you're looking at the bench options we've had this season, that needs to be good quality Premier League players that have got experience in there. So the depth needs to be way improved, like way improved. Is Championship level the same as Italian leagues, as Andy? Um, I, Italian league's not the best quality league at the moment in terms of like club competition and how good the teams are. But I think it's not going to be the level of the Championship. I wouldn't say that. I say that the Championship is really good for younger players to come through because it's pretty physical and it's a good match. To be honest, actually, when you're talking about this, it would be quite interesting to see how teams like say Wolves. I would say if you took the bottom three teams in the Premier League, and I think they would match up against a lot of a lot of the top teams in Italy quite well. Like Wolves caused massive problems for United, Arsenal recently. I think it's one of the yeah, I would probably go along with this. I'd say it's one of the weaker top big European leagues at the moment. I'd say the French league's got some better players in, but maybe not as many good teams. If you're looking at the Bundesliga, you'd say Germany's got better, it's a better league at the moment. Obviously, I think La Liga is probably going to be second to Premier League in terms of depth, but yeah, you can see, can't you? Sometimes a good indication is going to be what's happening in the Champions League. We're seeing Bayern Munich do really well. We're seeing Arsenal do pretty well the last couple of years, and you've got Atletico doing well. But Paris Saint-Germain are probably like the best club team over the last few years, but they're probably, you wouldn't consider the French league the strongest league. But no, Serie A is definitely where I think we're going to see someone like Xerxes and Agati end up. Stephanie says João Gomez has to be our first deal. I put a custom emoji for you, Stephanie, but I think it's so small people can't work out the picture. But it was your suggestion, so I'll try and put it in the chat in a minute. But if anyone's like any members want to just put the emoji in there so Stephanie can see it, I hopefully you like it. It looks better blown up, but I don't think you follow me on social media, so I can't really show you the picture in kind of like big size. Gomez and Hackney seem like easy deals to do. Hackney is like a sensible deal, isn't he? So Edison is 27, Agume 24, Hackney's 24 in June. Are better alternatives long term, in my opinion. Yeah, when I see the story about Edison, before we go on to Belieber, when I see the story about Edison, the thing that's in the back of my mind is it feels quite cheap, but this doesn't feel like the sort of deal the Manchester United have been looking at. He doesn't have the Premier League experience. He's at the age where you think actually he's not going to like. Is he going to improve in the next couple? Is the next few years for Edison going to be better than his current level, or are we going to see it actually? Are we going to see moving him to a more difficult league? Are we going to see a worse version of Edison? So I think the numbers he's putting up in Serie A look fine, like are decent numbers, but I think in context you've got to look at it and say he's playing in a league that's nowhere near the level of the Premier League. So if you imagine like McTominay going from being a decent player at Manchester United to being essentially in the Ballon d'Or list, I think the Serie A is a different level. So I think Edison, whatever version we got of him, however he does, I don't think we see close to what he's capable, whatever he's doing now. I don't think we'd see games that are as good. So I'm going to go for a bit of believe. Actually, I'll have a look at the poll in a second. But believe has been talked about a lot, and one of the reasons is that they feel like Manchester United feel like maybe now they got Kobe set as like one of the midfield players, would Belieber work quite well with Kobe? Like Belieber seems to be playing a bit deeper this season. If you look at the numbers, he's playing more defensively. One of the things that's positive about Belieber this season, if you look at the numbers, is dual percentage, winning the ball back. He's playing more like deeper. So, but defensively, he's been really good. Some of the things that have dropped off are probably more attacking metrics and like passing forward, running with the ball. The things that stood out a year ago, Belieber's not doing that as much. I don't know whether it's a form issue or whether he's been playing deeper, but defensively, he's been putting up similar numbers to Casemiro. Like winning dual percentages is incredibly high. It's like 95th percentile or something. Um, the distance he's covering on the pitch is obviously the same as well. Brighton sources are saying that he's actually been their best player over the last couple of games, and questioning whether like he's coming into form at the right part of the season. I'm just wondering whether over the whole season are Brighton just using Belieber differently? Because if you look at it, he's not getting as far forward, but the defensive work he's doing is pretty effective. They're managing minutes. I don't know. It seems that if you take form, like say short-term form, I think Manchester United are looking at how would they use him at the club? Where would Belieber play for Manchester United? What would they be looking from Belieber? Would they be looking for something we saw, say, 12 months ago, like a year ago, where Belieber was roaming forward a lot more, progressing the ball lots more, and being quite dangerous as a ball progressing sort of more attacking midfielder? Or would they see Belieber as going to be more defensive? Because defensively, Jules is very good at that. It probably also depends on like where do you see Kobe Mainu playing? Do you see Mainu as being very deep, more defensive, linking up defense to midfield, which I think he can do extremely well, or do you see Kobe Mainu as someone that's going to play further forward? It's probably a thing that Manchester United have got to consider that if you're looking at a player to go alongside Kobe Mainu, like for me, I've always said that someone like too many would feel like a good option. Like you're looking at someone that's got a lot of the attributes of Casemiro. Like no one really replaces Casemiro, but I think too many maybe ticks a few more boxes than other people. But where do you want to see Komani play next season? I suppose is going to be the obvious question because this is potentially going to be like if we're going to sign a player to play alongside Komani, then maybe in like 8 out of 10 games in the Premier League, this is going to be our midfield pairing. So it will be a question of, does Mainoo play further forward, further back? Do you want two players that can alternate going forward and defensive? Do you want to get a definite six? Do you want to get more of an eight? But I think that overall, if we're looking at the transfer window, I hope we get a range of profiles. If we do get a six, I hope we also get a couple of eights. But I hope we do actually look at potentially, different ways of playing. We don't necessarily want to have just defensive players to play alongside Ko-Mainoo. Ko-Mainoo's playing further forward because sometimes you might want to get two attacking players or have two players that can do maybe be quite effective on the ball as well as defensively. It opens up a lot of questions and it's quite difficult. So um, this is why I'm saying that. Say, Believe is only 22. Yeah. So Tony, I did. I think someone shared something on the Discord. I'm not sure if it is you or somebody else, but I did post. I did send something to someone last night that I saw with Belieber. If you compare Belieber's season this season with last season, the numbers are quite different in terms of like what's happening this season. There seems to be a lot more defensive action and a lot less attacking options, suggesting that he's playing alongside different midfielders. The roles changed a little bit. And it depends. If you're looking at form and you're looking at games, like Belieber's impact will seem less. And I think it's a little bit like Khomeini's impact seems less when Khomeini's playing more defensive because people notice like more attacking play more. And Bruno Fernandes obviously get a lot of notice as well. But I think Mainoo does things behind the scenes that when you're watching games, if you watch the highlights of Mainoo, he doesn't make mistakes. He's very good and comfortable in possession. You're looking at very effective passer, very good short passing game, and not taking risks. Just being very comfortable on the ball. You can't really press him. You can't really rattle him, and generally under pressure in defensive situations, he's really good. It's something we used to see. We used to sometimes see like Paul Pogba or see maybe McTominay when they were in that sixth position, they were a bit slow in turning out of defence. They were quite often dispossessed, causing problems for our defence. So I think Koemenu is incredibly good at that. But also, I would think he might also be used in a more advanced role, where I think when you see him running with the ball, he's got great composure in possession and is able to pick out sensible passing. And actually, he's got a decent shot. So there's a few things that Maine's got that mean that I think it can be quite useful either side of the pitch. It might depend. Is Belieber going to be one of those players that could play defensively, which he has done a lot this season? And if so, like during the match, where Mainu's switch is a bit more defensive, is going to be Belieber going to be one of those players that can roam forward? We have seen him do that. So I think for me, this is like a midfield that could work. It wouldn't work overnight. It would definitely require a bit of understanding and a relationship on the pitch, but potentially, I think these two players could work quite well together. There's no doubt that if you look at Belieber's defensive stats this season, they're incredibly good. And if you're looking at what he did a year ago, he can progress the ball very well. He's a good physical runner. He could get so. I think there's definitely an upside, but it would be interesting to see how it works. So I would say you'd like more midfield control. We're very counter attack, very long ball, which you don't like. I would say Man United have always had a general Manchester United have always like used the long pass a lot. If you remember, like Beckham passing to Giggs and Roy Keane, or actually no, Scholes to Giggs. Manchester United have always played counter attack very well. It's always been like a. If you're looking at the Premier League as being one of the most transition based leagues in Europe, where you do see like loads of games when they open up, there's like attack. It is quite a lot of counter attacking. We saw Liverpool hit Man United on the counter attack a bit on the weekend as well, and we see other teams do that, hitting on the break. Alex Ferguson's team was phenomenal on the counter attack. We used to score a lot of goals from defending corners, and so I think Man United have always played counter attack very well. I think with midfield, when you have people like Paul Scholes, he was able to like lead the counter attack. The same as like people like Beckham, the same as like other good passing players we had in our team, and we had aggressive running wingers, didn't we? We had like people like Cristiano Ronaldo at one point. We had Ryan Giggs for 20 years, so we always had like people that were good on the counter attack. But I think also, yeah, we were good in possession, but also we probably had a lot better players than most teams. But in terms of control, I think Koemenu, like Koimanu would give you control cake. I know you're not a fan of Koimanu, but that's what he does. Koimanu is someone that can control the game, can control midfield because you could be you could be passing like you can see Koimanu picking out short-term passes, keeping possession, keeping the ball ticking over. So I know you're not a fan of Koimanu, but he represents probably one of the best midfielders we've got in our squad in terms of keeping possession and not losing the ball and maintaining attacks, like winning the ball back, keeping it, playing it simple, keeping the ball and moving things around. If Kobe Mainoo expands his passing range, which generally happens over time anyway, and that's something that Scholes improved on year after year. If Kobe Mainoo's passing range gradually increases, I think you'll see a player that's doing exactly what you want, that is able to pick out the short-term passes that keep things ticking over, but also pick out dangerous options if that arises. So looking at this one, so United DNA passer and the runner. I mean, counter-attacking football I've watched since I don't know, like since Man United started winning trophies in the 90s, they had a strong counter-attacking game. And so Tony says Believer can play in a single and double pivot. So no, that's probably a good thing as well. That I think Believer is going to be quite versatile in terms of this one. I think if you remember when people were talking about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer football as well, then one of the things that I liked about that, if you remember the Bournemouth game, like a 5-2 match where I think Matic started the counter attack and it ended with like it might have ended with a Bruno Fernandes volley, but it was like very very quick, one touch passing, fast running down the wing. It's something that Man United do seem to be trying to bring back some of these players. So if you're looking at the transfer window, it does seem that Manchester United are looking at pacey wingers, something which we've effectively moved on. We haven't got Rashford, we haven't got Anthony. Sancho wasn't particularly pacey. We did have a Langer, but we moved him on. So it looks like some of the players that we moved on in the past, Man United are actually trying to reverse what we've done and try and bring back some wingers to the club and try and actually, we seem to be making transfers similar to how we used to, like a long time ago. But if you're looking at Belieber is someone that defensively can do the job. He's somebody that he has been used differently with Brighton. Just look at like there's resources out there, so you just have a look at it. And so I'll go say more midfield control means bringing in quality. It does. 'Cause if you look at someone like Agate, he can win the ball back. So that. Where's the progression? How do you mean? Like the progression at the moment is Manchester United have gone from 15th to third, and Co Manu is going to be like we can't really compare Co Manu with Scholes because yeah, Manchester United are. Yeah, we got a quite young team at the moment. We're trying to build back up. Andy says fast counter attack. That's United's DNA. Mark's saying you think Belieber's a mistake. You don't get the hype. I think it's difficult to. It's probably difficult to take if you take players out of different teams. Then a lot of people pointed to say like not, we got Roy Keane from a relegated Nottingham Forest. We got when we got Dennis Irwin. I don't know if he was like amazing at Oldham, or Steve Bruce from was he Norwich, Pallister from Middlesbrough. These teams weren't performing. These teams were not great teams, and these players were not necessarily head and shoulders above the rest of the team. But Man United saw something in those players that would fit as a team. So I think what Manchester United are doing here is, if you look at Belieber, then it's not necessarily about what Belieber's doing at Brighton week in, week out. It's that how does the things that Belieber's good at fit in with a team that Manchester United have got? So what we're looking at the moment is probably trying to assemble a team rather than looking at trying to get a team of Galacticos and go, right, who's the best midfielder? Right, we'll get him. Who's the best winger? We'll get him. It's about getting a team that actually works and sensibly building a team. And it's probably going to mean that Man United make a couple of decisions that people maybe question and scrutinise. Okay, why are we doing this deal? But when the team's actually functioning, I would say if you looked at like Cunha and Buemo, Benjamin Sesko, you put those three players into the team. Now we're kind of seeing, Sesko is a good finisher. He scored against Liverpool. We're seeing Buemo scored against Liverpool as well. Actually, Cunha. So all our new signings have scored against Liverpool. So that's obviously working out really well. And also, I did say at the start of the season, I didn't expect any of these players to put up like 20, 25 goals. But what I did expect was a pretty much standard goal thread across the front three where Yeah, and Mbeumo will score sometimes, Cunha will score sometimes, Sesko will score sometimes, and the added bonus this season has been Casemiro stepping in and scoring loads of important goals. But that's something that Man United have done for years, having 4 or 5 players that are all capable of getting double figures and having a goal threat. So if you look at it, and Mbeumo was a penalty taker for Brentford. I think Cunha would be taking penalties for Wolves. Benjamin Sesko, I think he was actually playing in a team that had 2 strikers, but he's probably putting up the same amount of goals he got in Leipzig. Anyway, I think he didn't have low. It wasn't particularly prolific there. And if you look at Bruno Fernandes, he's getting more assists than ever with better quality finishes. So I don't think it's a concern about individual numbers, but I think if you're looking at how Man United then construct the midfield, it's again the same sort of situation where you have to look at what fits with Kobe Mainoo. Like if Anderson, no, if for whatever reason Anderson's had a great season, but if Anderson's skill set didn't work with Kobe Mainoo, it wouldn't make a lot of sense to bring him in, unless of course you're then moving out Mainoo and bringing in someone else to play with Anderson. You've got to consider how these work together. So it's a little bit like having Aiden Heaven and Yoro could be the future, but it's probably not going to be the future the first year because they're going to lack some experience. And if you're looking at Manchester United's midfield next season, it might be that they feel like they want to get someone like Edison for that bit of experience. It might be that they can get someone better like Too Many, but at this point in time, we don't know. Marv says you think he's worth 40 million. I think 40 million doesn't get you a lot, to be honest. So we always seem to gain control from a losing position. I think that's just football. I think that's football. If you're looking at Liverpool, are a Premier League title-winning team last season. If I don't think any team controls the match for 90 minutes. Like, I don't think I've seen, unless you've got Man City playing against a team near the bottom of the league, no one's really controlling the match. I think with if you looked against Liverpool on the weekend, the first half, Manchester United pretty much, pretty much just let Liverpool have possession, but Liverpool created nothing, and then Man United, when Man United attack, they attack with intensity, but most Manchester United teams recently, they're not really they're not really attacking uh, uh, necessarily. They're not playing football the same way as City. City play very slow possession based football. This is not how Man United have ever played, and even the greatest teams of Man United were not playing that. They did play quite open games, and it's kind of more exciting. But again, it depends on your preference. Manchester United won loads of things for 20 years. Liverpool won loads of things for 20 years, but played a very different style of football with lots of lot of focus on defence in the 70s and 80s. It was pretty boring and lots of back passes to the goalkeeper. Very dull football, lots of 1-0s. Man United have never been that style of football. Arsenal have been. Arsenal might have success this season by being very defensive and reliant. Like last night, a 1-0 win for Arsenal. That's typical Arsenal, but they're going to go up against a team like, say, Paris Saint-Germain, who Paris Saint-Germain remind me a little bit more of Manchester United when we were at our heyday, because it was pretty much like, we're going to score 5 goals, even if you score 4, and that was the last game. So tonight, I'm expecting goals, and I don't know how Bayern Munich are going to cope, but Paris Saint-Germain will be out to score goals, and they feel a little bit like a Man United '99 team where if Paris Saint-Germain win the league, they won't be grinding out a 1-0. They'll be just blowing the teams away and with just the amount of goal scoring. And I think that's what Man United fans are looking forward to. We beat Liverpool 3-2, but if we beat Liverpool 1-0, would we be more satisfied if we'd have had like more possession? I'm not sure. And Mark says, buy 2 world-class midfielders. Say Kobe is Bruno's replacement in the 10. So I think we're keeping, as far as I can be seeing, I think we're going to be keeping Bruno Fernandes unless there's a crazy twist. Karthik says envision mainly playing a Scholes kind of role, and we sign someone who can be a Carrick Fletcher type of role, and say Mainoo gets more freedom while the new signing stays more disciplined with his role. So maybe. I mean, Fletcher was incredibly disciplined and was kind of the go-to guy in a lot of top games, wasn't he? I would say Carrick probably went under the radar a bit at Manchester United when he was a football player. But no, it'd be interesting to see when this is where I'm kind of interested, but I'm not sure what's going to happen. That Man United are going to be building around Mainoo, But at this point in time, we don't know where Maine is going to be. Yeah, it'd be really interesting in like 12 months' time to have a look at a heat map and go, right, where did Maine play most of this season? And actually maybe compare it with this season, what he was doing alongside Casemiro. Jim says, I think Jim's getting worn down by Belieber, saying, I'm warming to Belieber. Maybe your recruitment team know what they're doing, and say that would be a weird thing. That I would put this out there. Do you think that our recruitment team are actually getting a better job done than recently? Because if you look at what we've done as a club, recruitment wise, from I suppose like maybe the last 18 months, we've got bargains like Aiden Heaven, we've got Dorgu coming in, we've got who else have we signed recently? The signings, I think that it's easy to sign players like Mbeumo and Cunha, isn't it? But Lamans as another option. I mean, Lamans was quite cheap, so are we looking at a player there where you think, that's another deal we got done that didn't cost a lot of money? So maybe I think with Belieber, everybody's going to be quite divided, aren't they? But I think with Belieber, that would be a long-term Man United strategy. So I'll just close the poll here and say I'll just put something that's going to be a general question just to gauge opinion on Belieber. If you think yes or no, just put an opinion. It doesn't matter what your reasoning is. But do you think United should sign Belieber? So there's a few question marks over Belieber, and fair enough, people are going to have different opinions, and yeah, but if one of the opinions could be Manchester United scouts rate Belieber highly. They've been looking at him all season. They looked at him last season. They haven't seen anything that's making them change their mind about signing Belieber. So that's one thing. Manchester United have been looking at Belieber. This isn't a surprise, is it? We tried to sign him last season. We've been looking at him continually this season. Are we looking at making maybe getting a better price than this one? So if you look at the goals, assists, Cunha and Wemmer's numbers have gone down when they're at Wolves. I did see that. I'd be interested to know how much they've gone down and how much because Manchester United's goal scoring has gone up a lot. So I'm wondering whether if you look at say Dwight York, Andy Cole, Sheringham, etc. in 1998 to 99, no one got like over 15 goals, but Man United did have a much better team in that. So midfield control might help that. You might be getting more chances for sure. If you're getting more possession, got more chances to get goals and assists. But I think the numbers were always going to go down a little bit because Cunha and Mbeumo were penalty takers. So I'm thinking Mbeumo must have got. If you look at Thiago at Wolves, sorry, at Brentford this season, he's got a decent amount of penalties. So he's always going to put bigger numbers up at that team. If United signed Thiago, he wouldn't be able to do that because he wouldn't get like 5, 6 penalties to boost the numbers up. But no, midfield control will help 100%. It also, I think the main thing is it will help us defensively. So it's not necessarily that we'll score loads more goals. Our goal scoring actually matches. I think our goal scoring is very close to City and Arsenal's. So at the moment, it's probably midfield control that avoids like the Szoboszlai situation or it avoids the Gakpo situation. So it's like maybe we need to look at avoiding like conceding goals by giving away possession is something which you can cut back on a little bit as well. Say no. I would just say that at the moment, Jim, like I don't think a few good games are not going to change. It's the same as a few bad games don't change Manchester United's intent to sign Belieber. The same way that a few good games will not push the price up a lot. So Manchester United's interest in Belieber is pretty much the same as it was 12 months ago. That they never said they were going to pay 100 million. They're not going to pay 100 million. I think they're looking at where does this signing fit into Manchester United strategy. As Mark says, I would sign Belieber, but he's not a starter. Great. Would it be great if he's cheaper? Are you saying? Say Andy agrees that Paris Saint-Germain remind him of United at our best. That's why we have so many fans around the world. I think that's the sort of that. I'm not saying that's Manchester United's aim, but if you're looking at the way that Manchester City play, Or when Manchester City actually won the treble, they were completely blitzing teams, and Haaland was unplayable. And I just watched them bully teams around Europe for a season. They were phenomenal. But no, Pep Guardiola generally has been more possession based. Look at Barcelona, look at City a lot in the early days. But whereas Paris Saint-Germain, like the game that we saw last week, 5-4, that's insane. Like that's in terms of like football at that sort of level, that's just a crazy scoreline. I don't see Manchester United. Yeah, I don't see him like Man United used to do that sort of crazy results as well, where we had. I remember like us beating Middlesbrough like 4-3 in like 1999, and we used to have crazy sort of results like that. So it's not something unexpected. But I think that's kind of what, yeah, that's kind of that was quite successful for Man United. You can have success in a few different ways, and I think Man United fans just want to see success in an exciting way. Are we judging based on form this season or based on talent and potential? Well, I think if you're going to buy Belieber, you got to look at potential because you're going to have Belieber for say 5 years. You got to have a look at, do you think he fits into Manchester United's team? Do you think he's got a player that's going to improve our midfield? And is it going to be the sort of style of football we're looking at trying to do? What we actually need in our squad? And do you think he's good enough? And I would forget about prices because if you spend £100 million on a player that comes in and transforms your team, it's not going to matter. If you spend £30 million on a player that doesn't do that great, it's a waste of money. So I wouldn't worry too much about the transfer fees when we're discussing players. Just say how you feel about the player based on form. Welcome Quinn to the chat. Good to see you. So if you look at overall stats compared with against City and Arsenal, we rank eighth in terms of where we should be. So we're overperforming as the Hexian. I'm not sure which stats you mean when you're looking at that one. I think that there's some stats that maybe imply that, but I would say if you're looking at overall performance, then Manchester United's goal scoring, I think it's like third in the league or something. So the goal scoring is not really for me is not really hasn't really been a problem. But there's been a lot of games where a lot of 2-2 draws. If you're looking at Man United, not many like low scoring games this season. Quite a lot of games where when we've lost like 2-1. We have been scoring most games, which is a positive. So I think overall, let's say if you look at our stats, what this season, then I don't know. Is that for like the last? Is that since Carrick or is that before Carrick? I'm not sure. Cheers, Stephanie. And so general point. So with the amount of players that are signed and it doesn't work, I think all football recruitment teams for all clubs need analysing themselves because there's an awful lot of fails. Yeah, there's no guarantee, is there? There's no guarantees in terms of like transfers. Look at Liverpool with like some of the players they signed. They spent a lot of money. As Kirkez worked out, I mean, he was a Premier League signing, quite expensive. I'm not sure he's had the best season. And overall, I was talking to a Liverpool fan yesterday, and Liverpool, if they'd have stuck with the team they had last season and gradually introduced players in instead of putting them all in quite early, they might have actually been in a much better position. They might have won the league again. But I think they tried to change too much too soon. I think with Man United, we do have to change midfield a lot. So I think whatever happens, whichever players we get in initially, I think Man United's midfield will take a bit of time. So if we sign Belieber, I'm expecting Man United's midfield to not be great to start with because they've got to build up the understanding. If Manchester United sign too many, you'd feel that again. Too many might need a little bit of time to get used to the Premier League as well. So it's going to be tricky, isn't it? Because whoever joins Man United have got to get used to what Man United want from them. They've got to play a lot, probably alongside Manu, but also the style of football in the Premier League might be very different if they come from a different league. If you're joining from a team like Wolves, or a team like who else are we looking at from Brighton? It's going to be a big step up, isn't it, in terms of like pressure and environment. So it's going to be tricky. Yeah, no, exactly. Goals scored is fine. Goals conceded has been a bit of an issue. I don't know if we can blame it all on the goalkeeper, but there was definitely a factor at the start of the season, wasn't there, that we definitely had a goalkeeper in that wasn't great. But at the moment, would you sign Belieber? No, say 55%. Yes. So at the moment, the majority is for no. And what was the reason you wouldn't sign? Belieber is probably my question going to be because it feels a bit like it's looking likely. It feels like the scouts want him. It feels like Manchester United rate him highly, and it feels like United want to get him. What's the reasons for not signing him? I'd say between Bruno, Cunha, and Buemo, Casemiro, Sesko, we have just under 50 goals. So I'm glad the goal scores are varied. It's so difficult for the opposition to plan against. There's literally goal threat across the front, isn't there? So Man United's team, there's so much goal threat there. It's genuinely, if you're an opposition team working out how to stop Manchester United, it is pretty tricky, isn't it? It is pretty difficult. So I'd be looking at it thinking, if you're an opposition team looking like where's the threat coming from Manchester United, there's literally too much threat, isn't there? There's going to be, yeah, if you stop, probably the main thing is if you can stop Bruno Fernandes, you might be getting, yeah, it might be something there. But if you're looking at potentially stopping the whole, it's impossible, isn't it? You can stop one or two players, but you can't really stop the whole team. It's going to be quite tricky. But also, based on the vote, I will close the vote quite soon. But based on the vote, if you think it's going to be a bad thing to sign Belieber, let me know your reasons why. If you think it's like a genuinely good thing, and you look at Belieber signing and think it makes sense, let me know why you think that as well. So I think with Belieber, it's genuinely difficult to predict like where is he going to play in the team, how's it going to work. I think it might potentially work different. Like it might be, I think it might surprise people that it might work out quite well. That Belieber at Brighton this season, there's been a few different factors playing alongside different midfielders. It's not the same. It's not necessarily the same, is it? So let's have a look at some of these comments, just to get a view, because everyone's going to have a different view. And I can't see any comment. If you voted for Belieber or not Belieber, let me know quickly before the end of the stream. What's your reasoning for wanting him or not wanting him? If you think getting Belieber is a mistake, why do you think it's a mistake? And if you think it's a good idea, why do you think it's a good idea? 'Cause otherwise, so like for me, I would get Belieber in. I think Belieber's an upgrade on what we've had. I'm kind of trusting the scouting as well. JSN that says I don't think it would be a surprise. I was kind of making a generalization based on the chat poll because at the moment the poll's kind of negative. So I think, as like, in my opinion, I think it might work fine. That if Manchester United have been looking at Belieber for a year, then I think they've always thought that Kobe Mainoo is going to be the future of their team anyway. So I don't see it being a big surprise. But you think they would complement each other really well. Yeah, I think they would. I think like people were saying, Belieber could play in a single or double pivot. They can both. They're both quite good defensively. They both could be good going forward. I think it could be more dynamic. It could be interesting because you've got somebody that's more mobile than Casemiro. We'll be able to cover more distance. I think if we lose the ball, I see less problems with Belieber. No, it's. Randy says Belieber is one of us. Take him. No, but Belieber did. I find it surprising that when I was talking about this on Red Devil United last season, I find it genuinely surprising that people were prepared to spend over 100 million on Belieber last year. And similar people and other Man United fans are now looking at it thinking we shouldn't be getting him based on one season. He's like 21, 22. It's like I remember before Euro 96, people were saying drop Alan Shearer because he hadn't scored for like 10 games. And Alan Shearer was like one of the players of the tournament. I think did he score every game for England? He might have done. He scored the first goal, and I think he scored against most teams. And I think people look at this and go, and look at. I think people are looking very, very short term in terms of like where they see the team. I think Man United need to look more medium term and think Belieber could be, yeah, he could be a great player in a couple of years as well. Voted against Belieber because too much money, so you'll probably go straight to the first team. And he had a dip in performance, so it seems like a risk. Says Yes, it's a fair reason. Fair reason for that one. So you take Belieber. I'd want him at 65 million. If the scouts want him, I'm trying to trust them currently. Yeah, that's yeah. I'm kind of being generous as well. I know people criticize the Man United scouts a lot. I think the Man United scouts generally do a good job. It's just sometimes the decision making at the top of the club's not great. Saying Kyle McCauley, part of our scouting, played a big role in say Mateus matters to like Chelsea, yeah, West Ham, Chelsea, Palmer, Caicedo, and at Brighton, Belieber, Cucurella, Danny Welbeck. So no, a good track record there as well. Wasn't there somebody that took who was the scout that took Lewis Hall to Newcastle? I think I saw him mentioned as well. I don't know if it's a different scout probably, but no, this is a key thing as well. I think a lot of it depends on the price, but a lot of the price depends on like what happens in the transfer market. So if Baliba's like 65 million and then suddenly prices go up and he becomes like 75 million, if you're looking at João Gomez then being like 50, Angela Stiller then being 60, Alex Scott being like 65. So I think it's all relative, isn't it? If we see Anderson go for a crazy figure, then maybe we start seeing prices edge up. But no, it is going to be um, tricky. Saying, I believe if 65 million, say more than that, no value for money, got to come into it. I think a lot of it depends on market value. That who would have thought Alanga would go for like 60 million and Gittins would go for 60 million? So yeah, I think you have to look at it and say if United feel he's the best option, then yeah, you got to consider him surely. But 65 million, not too bad. If it goes to 80 million, seems too much of a gamble, says Viril. Possibly, but it depends. If we see like mediocre defenders, say mediocre midfielders going for like 55, 60, and the price is edging up, then it might be that way. But I think Man United are going to try and get as good a deals as possible. Say all the Chelsea team have had a poor season, but who wouldn't take Caicedo, for instance? Exactly. And didn't believe it actually outperform Chelsea midfielders recently. I know people said it's a one-off game, but he did show that he can outperform Chelsea midfielders. He outperformed Newcastle midfielders. So I know people look at form, etc., as but being temporary, but then you can make the argument and say, well, Belieber played against Newcastle and played against Chelsea recently and was the best player on the best player in midfield. So if he can do that, it shows that now we've often played Newcastle and Chelsea. We didn't have the best midfielder on the pitch in those games. So there is going to be ups and downs, and I think Belieber's having a little bit of a maybe a little bit of a down this season, but I don't think as bad as people are saying. I think his average score on like different websites had gone down from being like 7 point something to like 6 point something. So it wasn't like people were talking like he's suddenly useless. And but no, it's not that. Anderson, so Anderson 100, Belieber 65, Hackney 35 is a good window. To be honest, that would be brilliant in terms of like those three players would bring so much energy into midfield, but also look at the ball winners. Like you've got people that are going to win their duels, win their battles, be competitive, like hard to play against, like good on the ball. Anderson and Belieber would be excellent signings, like in terms of like what works in the Premier League. The biggest concern I've got is the Premier League is brutal to players that come in, want a bit more time on the ball, are not physically strong, and not those sort of players. I think Belieber, Anderson, and Hackney would be three good signings. That it would be like if you're looking at low risk, Anderson and Hackney would be pretty low risk, wouldn't they? Belieber, I think, would be lowish risk as well. That I started off talking about Edison. I kind of talked myself out of that deal. I think Edison. I would stick with Premier League options. I think in the short term. But guys, based on the vote, so do you think United should sign Belieber? Yes, 71%. No, say 29%. So you think Forest are bluffing they sell for 100 million? I don't know. What if Forest get Champions League football? I think Man United should just like win all the rest of the games, set out their stall, go like, this is our project, this is what we want to do. And if we're going to spend quite big around Anderson as well, if we've got the money to buy Diamonde or we've got the money to buy a good left back and make the project, make the team look really good, we should go for that. That might help get some of these players in. But if anyone's got any final questions, I was a bit late starting today, and say not voted as I'm an outsider here regards Belieber. So as a neutral fan, your opinion is quite valued. So I will say that Premier League, say league to be healthy and competitive, Man United, they certainly have turned things around well. Yeah, I think you need to look at this, but it would be I think like a competitive Manchester United that it will be something the Premier League kind of needs, don't they? This is kind of okay. It's going to be a bit biased view, but I think there's a few teams you look at in terms of like they should be in the Premier League. Manchester United should be near the top, competing with teams like Arsenal, Liverpool, and if you see some other teams as well, Forest should be a Premier League team. Like they shouldn't be fighting relegation. Jokes aside, like teams like Spurs should be a Premier League team. Everton, like Leeds have got the fan base as well. They should be a Premier League team because we've got the rivalry. And I don't look forward to playing Burnley. And with Bournemouth, you don't have a rivalry. Brentford you don't have a rivalry. Brighton, but yeah, I think teams like Leeds, Nottingham Forest, like Aston Villa, traditional like Premier League teams that have had success over the years, is a good thing. I think if Manchester United get back to the top of the Premier League, I think interest in the Premier League will only like skyrocket. But I think financially as well, it's going to be good for Man United, and we'll get that. So you think? I think 125 million. I don't think anyone's going to pay 125 million for Anderson. It's crazy, isn't it? I think 100 might be about the maximum, but there's going to be lots of twists and turns with like too many Anderson, Rodri, all these kind of situations with City. It's going to be a tricky one to call, isn't it? But I'll leave that there. I like that list. Hopefully, we can do something like that. But I'm going to head off, guys. I'll be back later on today about 1 p.m. Hopefully, there's some breaking news. I think myself and Widders are better might be doing something at 7 p.m. if I can be organised, depending on like having some sort of story and being able to actually get around a bit quicker. But I think I can do that as well. So if you're still up for that, we'll try and do that. But we're going to be talking about breaking news at 1 p.m. Hopefully, there's a few different stories to talk about. If anybody sees something, I'll post a link quickly to the Discord. If you're not in the Discord, we've got about 75 people in there now, so it's gradually growing, which is a good thing as well. It's going to be like the hub for the channel where we advertise, we post things and information there as well. So I'll put that in there and we've got that. But thanks everybody for getting involved. I know there's like kind of like there's not loads of news at the moment, but as things come out and start heating up towards the transfer window, we will be on top of it. So I think we're doing all the groundwork over the next couple of weeks. Things will kind of click into gear as well. But we'll also be looking forward to the next game on the weekend, which we'll try and cover a preview. I might have a look at which teams we're playing, see if I can get rival fans on. Sunderland might be a stretch though. I don't really know any Sunderland fans, so that might be difficult. No £100 million players, said Randy. I don't think United will spend that much. If we do, I hope it means we've got insane amounts of money to spend, and we're spending that IPL cricket team money on the club. But I don't see that happening with our owners. But cheers, everybody, and I'll be back hopefully 1 p.m. today with hopefully some breaking news or hopefully something different to talk about as well. But then, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you guys in the next one.